But, however, there's one important aspect, thing that you can do, and it's very important for standardization bodies. There are different types of, there are different ISO standards that are very critical for ESG and sustainability reporting. Now, when you look at the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, now I'm going to try to explain why these ESG-focused ISO standards are very important. And what I'm trying to communicate here is that the first thing, maybe like one of the priorities that I that could be taken into consideration is to make sure that these ISO standards are available in your countries, in your languages, and as national standards. Like this could be, and this is the main message that I want to give here. But let me take you back to the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, and let's see what it says there about ISO, IEC, and SENELEC standards, right? You can see the item on the screen, and it says the undertaking. By the way, undertaking is the company, right? The entity that is reporting may disclose whether it relies on any European standards approved by the European Standardization System, which is ISO, IEC, or SENELEC, as well as the extent to which data and processes that are used for sustainability reporting purposes have been verified by an external assurance provider and found to conform to the corresponding ISO, IEC, and SENELEC standards. So this is one very important reference the European Union's Sustainability Reporting Directive makes reference to. And then, for example, there is mention to ISO 14091 on the second example below. You see, this is the standard on adaptation to climate change, guidelines on vulnerability, impacts, and risk assessment. So as you can see, there's a direct reference to a specific ISO standard. And this is not all. The Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, for example, also makes reference to ISO 26000, as you can see on top. This is the standard on social responsibility. And also one other important ISO standard in the implementation in preparing these reporting standards is ISO 14064. This is the standard for calculating the carbon footprint. This is the standard that shows the methodologies and how you need to do it. So so what it says here in the directive is that if you're going to calculate your carbon emissions, then you can use ISO 14064. I accept that as a legitimate, standard, and I recognize that as a legitimate, methodology. So as you can see, even if a standardization body does not have a role in adopting sustainability reporting standards, there are so many ISO and ISO IEC standards that you can make available. You can include, harmonize into your national system so that your exporters, your companies can use. Actually, I am going to provide a very basic list of some ISO standards that are directly relevant to reporting and ESG, environmental, social, and governance. For example, ISO 9001, this is the base quality management system standard, right? All management system standards of ISO is based on ISO 9001. What ISO 9001 does is, for example, by the way, are you familiar with ISO 9001? Have any of you read ISO 9001? Can you please respond in the chat box? If just a few yeses would be enough for me. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. This is the most basic standard, right? I'm not surprised that all of you have heard of it. Now, related to governance, let's go back to what the reports need to contain in relation to governance, right? You might remember this slide. What does it say? It mentions internal system of practices, internal controls and audits, right? Procedures and processes, the board composition, the management composition, right? All of these are, if a company applies the ISO 9001 standard, then they should already have all of this information ready and documented in their organization, because ISO 9001 requires companies to explain how it's managed. What is the management mode, right? What are the different divisions? What are their responsibilities? Who works in these divisions, in these units, and what are their responsibilities? So it is very safe to say that if a company is actually really implementing the ISO 9001 standard, then they actually have the majority of the governance reporting part already ready under their, they can use all this information, all these documents, and they can reflect this information into the sustainability report. So ISO 9001 is a very valuable tool. ISO 14001, let's speak about that. Environmental management system for minimizing environmental impact, right? So these sustainability reports have an environment section, obviously, and the disclosure requirements and the requirements from companies reporting include how they manage the risks and how they assess their environmental impacts and how they're managing the system, right? What are their processes? What are their policies? What are their actions, right? And how are these actions being monitored? How are they being measured? So if a company has an ISO 14001 management system in place, then this automatically produces a lot of valuable information, which makes it very easy for the organization to reflect on their sustainability reports. And I already mentioned, for example, one more example. Oh, ISO 19011, 19011. I am very certain that you have heard of 19011 as well, because this is the guideline for auditing, right? And under the governance section of the sustainability reports, you have to explain how you monitor your sustainability related performance. And monitoring is about audits, right? You have to carry out internal controls. So having an ISO 19011 compliant system gives a company a lot of information and basis and documentation to prove that they are implementing these internal controls, and they are implementing these internal controls according to an internationally recognized best practice, which is ISO 19011. ISO 20400, for example, right below that, it's about sustainable procurement, right? And remember what I mentioned to you about the value chain, and that the sustainability reporting frameworks require companies to report throughout the value chain, upstream and downstream, right? And it is very important in these reports. I can show you actually, I can show you those items as well. And you will see them if you see. It asks the company to explain how they manage their critical suppliers, right? How do they analyze risks, right? How do they support their critical suppliers in becoming more sustainable? See, ISO 20400 is the management system. It is this international best practice on how to do that. There are so many more. ISO 31000, for example, far down below. I mean, I can explain all of these for a very long time, but I think I made the point clear. These are very important ISO and ISO IEC standards. And I think it is very important. It is very important for all eco member states, for Turkey as well. Of course, for Turkey, because TSE is a member of Sensenelec, like these standards are kind of like, automatically, not automatically directly, but it's a very fast process for us. I don't know how it is in your countries, but these are the standards that your companies, your exporters will find very valuable. They will be able to use these standards to establish sustainable systems, and also as a tool for preparing high quality and good sustainability reports. So this is one thing, at least a national standardization organization. If you don't have these standards in your system, I would strongly recommend you to perhaps consider, whether these need to be prioritized in your work. Of course, it is your decision.